Welcome everyone to the governance and development video. So, what is governance and what is development? Remember, good governance leads to a greater economic development. That's direct role which need not require any explanation. But we need to understand what is governance and what is government. So, interchangeably used often versus broader meaning. While often used interchangeably, a good governance is broader term for a good government. Remember, governance is the verb, whereas the government is the noun part of it. A government is akin to a person, and the governance would be akin to his or her behaviors. So, a government refers to the entity exercising authority, which is the legitimate power in an organization, institution, or state. Studying government is studying the exercise of this authority. On the other hand, governance encompasses the various ways in which social life is coordinated. Extending beyond the actions of the state, it is possible to have a governance without government. Authorities as the foundations of the government. Legitimate power. What are the legitimate power of government per se? And how do I distinguish them? Authority is defined as legitimate power, the right to influence behavior based on acknowledged duty to obey, not coercions or manipulation. And that is what legitimate power is all about. It authority is defined as legitimate power, the right to influence behavior based on acknowledged duty to obey, not coercion or manipulation. Where the Weber's types of authority tells you the traditional, charismatic, legal authorities are three grounds. I again remember traditional, charismatics, and legal authority are the three grounds upon which obedience can be established. The realms of politics and the connections to the government. Politics and government. Studying politics is essential. Essentially, studying government or the broad exercise of authority. Politics is the art of government involving control through collective decision making and enforcement. Public versus private sphere. Traditionally, politics and government are associated with state actors and public institutions funded by taxation, responsible for collective organization. Civil society, with its private institution, is distinct but contains entities with a wider public access. Talking about expanding the scope, the concept of public life or public affairs broadens the understanding of politics and government beyond the state itself. Defining government, let me give you different perspective altogether. First and foremost thing is the traditions and the institution, as Kaufman has stated. Governance is a framework through which authority is exercised in a country. Now, talking about exercise of power as far as World Bank statements, governance is how a power is utilized throughout a country's economic, political, and social institution. This is of importance. Sound exercise of authority for development. Country governance assessment. It involves institutionalizing a system of for citizens and organizations to articulate interest and exercise right and mediate differences for the collective good. Mechanism, process, and institution. United Nations Development Program, and how do they define governance? Governance at all level involve these, though which citizens and groups act on their own interests, rights, and obligations per se. Government responsiveness and citizens' right focuses on efficient, effective, accountable public management open to citizens' participation in a democratic system. Safeguarding and growing asset, United Nations Development Program. Governance refers to how any organization is run, including the process, system, and control thereof. Steering directions, management, and accountability. Birmingham City Council emphasizes the system, procedures for guiding and organization. Next is fairness, transparency, and accountability. World Bank, corporate governance as is been stated. I'm talking about fairness, transparencies, and accountability. Key principles, especially in the commercial cost context, directing and controlling the business organization, OECD, corporate governance, specifically for the corporate sectors, quality of institution for sound policies, qualities of institution for sound policy. Asian Development Bank focuses on efficient, effective, equitable, and inclusive policies making. Institutional environment for citizen interaction. Asian Development Banks also state governance is the context in which citizens interact with each others and government thereby. Process of decision making and implementation. Governance encompasses both the making and the execution or even non-execution of the decision thereby. Interaction, power, relationship, and accountability highlights the dynamic interplay of structures, processes, traditions, and the crucial element of influence, decision making, and accountability thereby. The Institute of Governance framework as we know it around. What are they about? Decision making as central. Why are we looking at a central decision making? Governance is fundamentally about how societies or organizations make important decisions, voice and engagement. It determines who has a voice in the process and who is engaged. Accountability. It establishes how accounts is rendered for decisions and actions thereof, and that needs to be understood time and again. Steering societies and organization. Governance is the art of steering, making strategic decisions about directions and roads thereby. Multiple actors. When I say multiple actors, I only mean various stakeholders that is been prevalent around there. Governance involves various stakeholders who articulate, influence decision making thereby. Input decision making and output and accountability. Decision makers observe stakeholders' input and are accountable for organizations' outcome and processes thereby. The governance for human development. The goal is very simple. The central challenge is to establish governance system that fosters and sustains human development, especially for the most vulnerable population. Key element of good governance: participatory, transparency, accountable, effective, equitable, and promoting the rule of law. These six principles again: participative, transparent, accountable, effective, equitable, and promoting the rule of law. Priorities: good governance ensures political, social, economic priorities reflect broad societal consensus. What are the three pillars of governance as far as United Nations development programs is concerned? First is an economic governance, decision making the process affecting the country's economic activities and international economic relation with significant implications on equity, poverty, and quality of life. The second one is all of political governance, the process of decision making to formulate a policy. That's very central to a good governance, the political governance. And the third one, the last one, is the administrative governance, is how you execute those decisions, the system of policy implementation. What is the role between these three is what exactly is very important all together. The interconnectedness. Good governance encompasses all the three dimensions, defining the process and structures that guides political and social economic relationships. The scope of governance beyond the state, governance includes the state, political and public sector institutions, but are also transcends by it by encompassing the private sectors and civil society organizations. What is the state role? United Nations Development Program primarily focuses on how effectively the state serves the need of the people. Private sector influences. Private enterprise and informal sector influences social, economic, and political policies to create a much more favorable environment for marketplace. Civil society position. The civil society lies between the individuals and the state, comprising diverse groups interacting socially, politically, economically, and governed by formal and informal rules thereby. The governance and sustainable human development. First and foremost thing is your poverty elimination. United Nations Development Program believes that building the capacity for good governance is fundamental to eliminating poverty. Human development defined expanding the choice for all people, particularly the poor and vulnerable, placing them at the center of development. It also includes the protecting future generations' life opportunities and the natural systems supporting life. Economic growth as a mean. Economic growth is a tool for sustainable human development, not the ultimate goal. It doesn't automatically translate to improve human development or poverty reduction thereby. Disparities. Significant disparity in human development exists within countries, particularly affecting the indigenous people and the ethnic minorities thereby. What are we talking about in terms of empowerment? Expanding capabilities and choices, enabling individuals to exercise these choice free from deprivations and participates in decision making thereby. Cooperation, recognizing the importance of belonging, how people work together. Equity, ensuring access to opportunities beyond income, such as education for all. Sustainability, meeting present needs without compromising on the future generations' ability of well being and basic capabilities. Security, protecting the livelihood of the people and freeing people from threats and harmful disposition. United Nations focus areas eliminating poverty, creating job and sustaining livelihood, protecting the environment and promoting women's advancement, all underpinned by good governance thereby. The art of governing from control to orchestration. Shared powers and consent. In governance, power is also shared and mostly shared. Authorities relies on the consent and participation of the governed. Now, this is citizens that we are looking at. Unlike the top-down control often associated with the traditional government, orchestration versus ruling. Governance involves orchestrating and managing society, calling on everyone to play a part rather than simply ruling and controlling through force and obediences. Trust and transparencies. Power in governance rest on the trust among stakeholders and in the directors. We are talking about making transparency an essential elements for good governance. Shared accountability. Accountability is distributed with those holding greater power, bearing greater responsibility. Management over control. Governance favors management, which operates with incomplete information and adapts based on the feedback thereby over rigid control based on assumed full knowledge. Leadership for societal development. Governance implies leadership that moves society towards development beyond just maintaining order. Strong future. Good governance steers organizations towards the vision and align daily management with a long term goal. Effective leadership. What is it? At the core of governance is all about leadership. Improved outcomes. Effective governance enhances finance and social results and ensure responsible use of resources thereby. Risk mitigation. Poor governance can lead to a commercial failures and legal issues and a loss of purpose. Right-based approach. Governance should involve right holders in decisions about fulfilling those rights through participation and empowerment. MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals and governance. Good governance is crucial for achieving the Millennium Development Goal, as highlighted by experiences in Asia and the Pacific. Indonesian centralization, India's focus on responsiveness, China's anti-corruption effort thereby. Shift from traditional public administration, modern governance differs significantly from hierarchical, leader-centric model envisioned by Weber and Wilson. Multi-organizational programs, service delivery increasingly occurs through the network of firms and government and association. Governance as a new process, it is seen as a changed way of governing, broadening the traditional government thereby. Relationship with the new management, while related, governance is a political theory focused on policies or processes and differs from new public management. An organization theory focuses on outcomes and market economics. Created conditions for ordered rule. Governance ultimately aim is to establish a condition for organized society. I'm talking about social and collective action, to be very precise. Now, what does Stoker says as a key proposition for government? It says institutions and actors within and beyond the government is all about the legitimacy challenges. Then comes the accountability issues, blurring of boundaries of responsibilities, that we look into it. Then is all about the principal agent problem. Power dependence is collective action, principal agent problem. Then comes accounting difficulties, autonomous self-governing networks. We need to put in checks and balances. Last but not the least is potential for leadership failure, capacity to act beyond government power, as in the next line of leadership, next line of thoughts as to implementations all about it. This is what Stoker let us know. The central government, the federal government, the private sector, and the common person, the civil society. These are the three key principles altogether. Remember, the federal government, the common society or the citizenship, and the private enterprise or the business. These form the three pillars altogether. Thus, now, allow me to talk about all the three pillars. The state or the public sector, the principal actor. The state is the main entity of government, facilitating participation and providing enabling environment for the societal elements. What are my enablers? It establishes legal, regulatory framework, ensures political orders, and liberates citizens to act without fear. It also assures fairness in policies for private firms. Resource provider. The state provides resources like information, expertise, infrastructure, and financial incentives to support the market and communities. Local government crucial role. The local government are vital for implementing national programs and enabling community level participation in decision making. The Asian Development Roles Bank role of state. The ADB outlined several key roles for the state in sound development management, including creating conducive economic environment, protecting the vulnerable, improving government efficiency, empowering people, decentralizing administrative, reducing inequality, in encouraging diversity and protecting the environment. The most important about the ADB's role as far as the state's government are concerned. First is conducive economic environment, protecting the vulnerabilities. The second one, third is improving government efficiency. Fourth is empowering its citizens. Fifth is decentralizing the administration by empowerment. Sixth is reducing inequality, making everybody richer, everybody eliminating poverty altogether, encouraging diversity, and the last one is protecting the environment. All these 8 points that needs to be understood. Now let us talk about the second pillar, the private or the business sector, the corporate governance. They are the engine of the society. The private sector drives the economy, generates jobs and income, and collaborate in community economic development. Resource contributors. It offers financial, technical expertise to assist local governments into economic planning and large-scale projects. Focuses on efficiencies and economy, thereby corporate governance aims for efficiencies and economic output. State role in relations to the private sector. The state provides a level playing field for competition in the safety nets for those unable to compete. Potential for technological advancement. The private sectors can aid in developing technologies for economic growth and transferring knowledge for effective local governance. Partnership with state. The involvement of private sector necessitates the state building partnership and linkages thereof. The third pillar is the civil society, the complex of citizens and the groups. Civil society encompasses groups outside the government working in public arena. Diverse actors, including academia, non-governmental organization, private organizations, and voluntary groups. Facilitations and interaction plays a crucial role in enabling interactions among governance actors and mobilizing community participation in planning and decision making. Vibrant sector, the Philippines example. The Philippines has a large active civil society with a long history. Governance within the third sector. The term governance has a long history within the third sector, referring to the government, governing function of board and responsible person, filling gaps and facilitating interaction. Third sector organizes, engages in area where government or the private sector are absent, and promotes political and social integration, providing voices and checks and balances all together. How do I go around by it? Civil society offers a forum for grievances, giving voices to the marginalized, and acts as a check for power and the state and the business sector thereby. Apart from these three pillars, we have the other actors also. Let's say I'm talking about media. The IUG, the Institute of Governance, considers media as a fourth pillar and facilitating information flow through, although it's often a prior part of a private sector. Varying influences, the size and the strength of each actor differs based on the country's history, culture, and politics. Permeable boundaries, the line between these sectors are always not very clear, with overlaps and often occurring. Informal decision making. Beside formal structures, informal decision making, let's say the kitchen cabinet, local power families, organized crime can influence governance, often linked to corruption. Pressure from state redefinition. Globally, the state is under pressure to redefine its role due to the demands from the private sector for a better market environment, citizens for increased accountability and decentralization, and the global social economic trends that we're looking around it. So right now, let us try to draw a relationship between governance domains and human development, if I may say so. Each domain, let's say the private sector, civil societies, and the state, has a unique role in promoting sustainable human development. The state role focuses on the social contract, authority, public service, and creating an enabling environment for both private and public activity, ensuring stability, equity, and accountability while addressing the needs of the poor. The private sector role, primarily seen as a source of productive employment and income generation, requiring state support for transparency and competitiveness. The state fosters sustainable private sector development through macroeconomic stability and competition, access to credit, investment, rule of the law, and environmental protection thereby. Civil society role protects citizens' right, channel participation, organizes people to influence the policy, provide checks and balances, and often occur opportunities for capacity development and improved living standard. It also builds a social capital through civic network. With this, I do come to an end of this video. Thank you for watching it.